Hello everybody and welcome to a very special video indeed. Now this video obviously marks the beginning of building a nation with Treaty United, which will be of course over on Twitch. But I didn't just want to put up a generic go live video here because I'm going to stop doing that anyway. But I wanted to have a video that would actually explain what we're going to be doing with the save, how you can get involved of course, and just everything to do with it. So in case you want to do a building a nation save yourself, some little tips that we've picked up over a few seasons of doing this now, and yeah, how to get started with all that sort of stuff. So let's jump in. Bear in mind I'm recording this on my stream setup, so it's going to look a little bit different. Bear in mind of course, I've had to record this on the beta version of the game, which doesn't actually have Treaty United in the correct league. They've promised that they're going to fix this for release, otherwise we're going to be a little bit screwed right now, which is why a few things are a little bit skew-if in the fact that they're not actually in the proper league. They don't even have an away kit that I can actually change because the game doesn't even have that in there. So hopefully again all this stuff will be fixed for the full release of the game, but due to the circumstances of this, it was impossible for me to record this video after the game had released properly and before the stream, because time is a linear thing. Also, big important thing here, of course, if you want to get involved, but obviously maybe are working during the day during my streams and whatnot, or just don't particularly like Twitch, totally understand that. All the streams will be uploaded to my second channel, SecondYellowCard, which you'll be able to find in the description if you're not aware of that. So that all goes up there. I am planning on making some other content for that one too, but that's mostly for where these streams will be. So you'll always be able to catch them the day after the stream has aired. So what is building a nation? Who are Treaty United, and why is this such a big deal? I think I should start with what a building a nation is. I'm sure a lot of you are aware. I don't know if I did the first one of these. It doesn't really matter. But back in 2015, I think it was, 2016, start of 2016, I had an idea where I was basically going to try and make the league that I was managing in the best league in Europe. And based on the coefficients, that is. So, you know, the thing that decides how many European spots each country teams from that country get in Europe. Now, obviously, the lower you start, the less spots you have, and the harder a climb it is. So a team like England or Spain, you know, they get the 4 Champions League spots and all the rest of them. Those are the big boys that it's incredibly difficult to overcome because you can't just do it by yourself. Even if you took a team from San Marino and won the Champions League back-to-back 5 times in a row, it still wouldn't get you past a certain point because it's weighted to the number of teams that are also from your nation. And since they'd be underperforming, you'd never really be able to reach past a certain point. And I think that for me is what makes building a nation so fun, because it isn't just solely based on how your team performs, it's also based on how the other teams in your league perform. So there's an added pressure of trying to improve the teams around you. Now the way I like to do this is not by managing those other sides and dipping around a little bit. I find it more of a challenge if I try to do that. Sort of, it's kind of like repairing something from in France from the other end of the Channel Tunnel, basically. We sort of have to do it from a distance. Now obviously we didn't get particularly far when I did this originally with Midtjylland, but we got pretty far with Poland, with Polonia Warsaw on the YouTube save that we did a few years ago. I think we got them up to 5th in the coefficients, and we went even further than that on stream last year with Tromsø during the first big building a nation, I suppose, that really got us going with this. And we got the Norwegian League up to 3rd in the coefficients. And I believe that things have changed in the game sufficiently that actually, with the things we've learned and the changes, things like dynamic youth rating, there is a real potential to go all the way this year with Treaty United and the Republic of Ireland leagues. Biggest achievement with Norway, of course, was that 2 sides other than us won European trophies, and that right there is how you do it, basically. Now the way we did that, for those of you that wanted to do a save like this by yourself, is loaning a lot of our players to the other sides and trying to keep them out there, signing more players than we needed to, knowing full well that a lot of the AI recruitment for the other clubs isn't always that spectacular, but if you can get them to loan the player once and they play okay, you can just keep on extending that loan, even if they're good enough for your own first team. We had players that were like Brazilian internationals that I was loaning to other sides in Norway simply because they were doing brilliantly for them, and we didn't want to upset the balance, basically, as we were doing just fine by ourselves. And it's that over time allows the other squads to develop. But in addition to that, they will actually start making good signings themselves, seemingly based on the fact that they've had these players in the past. If you let them stay there, it seems that they use that as like a jumping off point to then sign players themselves of a high quality, particularly once you get to the point where all of your player values shoot through the roof based on the reputation of the league, because you do have to build that as well. I realize there's a lot of ramble in here, but I wanted to explain this fully, particularly if you do want to do this yourself. Because this is my favourite type of save to do, to be honest, my absolute favourite. So that's one of the ways you can do it. Now, there's a few little tricks you can do in order to try to do that. Now, it's hard to show you here. I'm obviously not actually managing Treaty because you can't. I'm actually in charge of Wexford on this. But I just wanted to show you something that definitely helped us out last year. Now, I don't know how efficient it is this year when it comes to the game, but it should still work in the same way. Now, one of the things obviously you want to do when loaning players to other clubs is to make sure that you're loaning them to other clubs in your league. Because that's how they get better, by you giving them quality players. Now, obviously, at the very beginning, you won't be in a position to do this. And I would say it's always best to choose a side in the second tier of the country you want to improve, because that way you're not taking away any quality. You're not basically adding to the You're not making a good club better, you're making a worse club better, and thus you're adding a new potential giant to the league that already exists. It saves you having to build up other sides even more, essentially. But once you do reach that stage of having all these extra clubs floating around that you want to loan your players to, sometimes it can be very difficult, even if you offer them the most outrageous terms, to get them to actually take your players on loan and be interested in them for whatever reason. Now, one of the ways that obviously you'd want to do that is by, when you're offering players out for loan, to exclude foreign clubs. That's fine. However, we found a little weird workaround that seems to work better. For whatever reason, if you do that, you're going to get less bids on your players from current clubs in your leagues than you would do if you do the other thing. And so essentially, it does the same thing, but it just seems to work better. So what you do is you go to clubs to propose to, and then go clubs from nation, and in this case, obviously, it would be Ireland. It's essentially the exact same thing, but for whatever reason, it seems to generate more bids on your players. We like to call it on stream the Pablo method, mainly because of the chatter that found this particular little workaround. Now, again, don't know how well it works on this year's game, but I can't imagine it works any different. So hopefully that will be a little one you can use. Another thing you can do is trialing players. Now, I don't know, again, why this works so well, but it does seem to. If you've got a load of players that you don't even really want to sign, but you'd quite, and they're free agents, for example, but you'd quite like some of the other clubs in Ireland to pick up, in this case, Ireland anyway, bring them on trials. For some reason, by bringing them in on a trial, you don't get loads of information about them, but because they're in the country, all of a sudden they start to become wanted by the other sides in your league. We don't know why. I assume it's because they're now domestic in some way, but for whatever reason, it does seem to encourage those teams to pick up those players as well. You're essentially leading the horse to water. I would say you can't make it drink, but what you're essentially doing is jumping on its neck and forcing its face into the river. That's basically what you got to do. One of the other things you're going to want to watch out for is not signing, or at all, hopefully, too many players from the other teams in your league, because of course then you're weakening your domestic rivals, and normally that would be what you'd want to do, but on a save like this, you want to keep them as strong as possible, because that way they'll have a better job at competing in Europe, getting into the European competitions, and thus gaining you coefficient points, which will then boost the league overall. That's what you really want. The only time I would really buy players from a domestic rival would be if that player is leaving the club already, essentially, and is already wanting to leave to go to a big European side or just out of the league. That way you can sort of buy them for the reasonable amount, nothing shady, like just buy them for the exact amount, and then loan them back as part of the sale offer. So you get like a 2-year loan deal as part of it. That way it keeps them at the club a little bit longer. You can always sell them back to them later, but not for anything crazy. Something else that's very important would be, if you're thinking about doing this, make sure you take a look at the rules of the league that you're managing in. Because if you are going to be in a situation like this, you're not going to be able to sign too many players from your domestic rivals, which will make it very difficult when it comes to squad registration rules. For example, say you're managing in a league where you can only have 4 foreign players in your squad. If you're not signing players from your domestic rivals, where the hell are you going to get those players from? So that's one of the things to bear in mind. Some certain nations that have particularly relaxed rules for stuff like this, in case you're interested. Poland is very good. Hungary used to be pretty good, and it's even better now as far as I'm aware. Austria starts quite high, but they also have very good relaxed rules. And also the Republic of Ireland, because they basically don't have any. Their rules are kind of just, you go on, boyo. You just do what you want. And that's why I think we might have a better chance of doing it this year, because there are essentially no squad registration rules. In Norway, we had to have 8 players trained in Norway between the ages of 18 and 21 in our squad. You also couldn't play any youth players unless they were in the squad registered as players. There was none of this, players under a certain age don't count. No, you had to register them. And it was very difficult to blood youngsters. In Ireland, there are no rules. Literally, it's not even squad registration rules. You can just kind of play anyone you want. And I think that's going to make it a little bit easier in a way, but also just that little bit more fun in the end when you could have all the clubs in Ireland filled up with absolutely brilliant talent. But also, with the introduction of dynamic youth ratings to the game this year, it's going to make the potential of introducing another element where the national team can actually improve without just pure luck. If things start to go well for, I think, anywhere, the clubs and stuff, the actual national team's youth rating, or the country itself, will go up, meaning that the clubs themselves are going to produce better players, thus will have better players domestically too, which is even better. One of the problems we struggled with last year was that the players weren't going to get any better, whereas now, that's no longer a problem. Irish players will get better, and that means the national team will improve as well, which isn't really a factor in the building a nation part because it's all really about the leagues for me. Obviously, you know, your version may differ, but it's still a fun little side effect of that as well. And I just think it's a really, really fun save. And I just wanted to make this video to talk about it a little bit more and why I think you should do a save like this if you're stuck for something to do and you want a long-term challenge. Oh boy, this is a long-term challenge. It took us 23 years to get Tromsø up to 23rd. I say Tromsø, Norway, up to 23rd. We actually did get to the best coefficient ourselves, I think, but obviously the other Norwegian sides, we did get a couple of them get to like the quarterfinals of the Champions League before. Like, that's saying something. We had Norwegian teams, I say Norwegian teams, it was Molde, got to the Champions League quarterfinals and knocked out like PSG and teams like that. So, and that was without us managing them. So it can be done, and I'm very, very excited to see how it's going to be done, hopefully this year in the Republic of Ireland with Treaty United. So I suppose I should probably explain why Treaty United. Basically, I actually don't even remember the reason. They were a club that used to be Limerick, and they sort of rose from the ashes of the club that was Limerick. I'm not sure entirely what happened there, but it's a sort of a brand new club and a fresh start, and I think that sort of suited us perfectly, as they are in the second division. I promise you they are. They will be, hopefully, when the full game is released tomorrow. And by tomorrow, I mean today. If they're not, I'm going to be in the absolute mud, my friend. So yeah, if that sounds like something that's going to be interesting to you, do head over to the stream right now. We are streaming this as we speak, getting started and jumped into it. There'll be 11 a.m. till 3 p.m. UK time on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. I'm not sure what time that would be locally to you, but of course, as I said before, if you do want to catch up on anything to do with that, the second channel will have all of this stuff on there as well. So yeah, I'm incredibly excited about this, and I hope you are too. So I will join you guys over there in a second, and if not, I'll see you on the second channel or in the next life. Thank you so much for watching. Hold your gun. Capybara. Bye-bye.